Hello everyone, my name is Ronak and you're watching VectoArt. In today's video, we will continue on designing the note-taking app which we created in the previous videos. So if you have missed those two videos, please check them out. I will leave a link in the description where we talked about how to create our first note-taking app in .NET MAUI. We also talked about models, views, and also we talked about bindings. And today we are going to talk about the MVVM pattern in .NET MAUI. So this app had this all notes view that we created where we could see a list of notes that we created. We also had a notes view where we could add notes and save them. We also had the about page which would give you the basic information about the application. So if you haven't checked out the other videos, please do check out that video, as that code is the base for today's video. So please check that out. And also, if you are interested in the entire code, the code is in GitHub and I have been updating it since, and today's code will also be updated. So please go to the link in the description where you can find the code for this page. So let's start by going to Visual Studio. And for those who haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. It means a lot. It motivates me to create more such videos. So let's get started. So let's start what MVVM is. So the .NET MAUI developer experience typically involves creating a user interface in XAML and then adding code behind that operates on the user interface. Complex maintenance issues can arise as apps are modified and grow in size and scope. These issues include the tight coupling between the UI and controls and the business logic, which increases the cost of making UI modifications and the difficulty of unit testing these code. The MVVM pattern helps clean, separate an app's business and presentation logic from its user interface. Maintaining a clean separation between app logic and the UI helps address numerous development issues and makes an app easier to test, maintain, and evolve. It can also significantly improve code reuse opportunities and also allows developers and UI designers to collaborate more easily when developing their respective parts of an app. So talking about the pattern, there are three core components in the MVVM pattern: the model, the view, and the view model. Each serves a distinct purpose. So here the following diagram shows the relationship between the three components. In addition to understanding the responsibilities of each component, it's important to understand how they interact. At a high level, the view knows about the view model and the view model knows about the model, but the model is unaware of the view model and the view model is unaware of the view. Therefore, the view model isolates the view from the model and allows the model to evolve independently of the view. The key of using MVVM effectively lies in understanding how to factor app code into the correct classes and how the class interact. So let's talk about the view. The view is responsible for defining the structure, layout, and appearance of what the user can see on the screen. Ideally, each view is defined in XAML with a limited code behind that doesn't contain business logic. However, in some cases, the code behind might contain UI logic that implements usual behavior that is difficult to express in an XAML, such as animations. Next, view model. The view model implements properties and commands to which the view can data bind to and notifies the view of any state change through change notification events. The properties and commands that the view model provides define the functionality to be offered by the UI, but the view determines how that functionality is to be displayed. The view model is also responsible for coordinating the view's interaction with any model classes that are required. There's typically a one-to-many relationship between the view model and the model classes. Each view model provides data from the model in a form that the view can easily consume. To accomplish this, the view model sometimes performs data conversions. Placing the data conversion in the view model is a good idea, but it provides properties that the view can bind to. For example, the view model might combine the values of two properties to make it easier to display by the view. Next, the last but not the least, the model. Model classes are non-visual classes that encapsulate the app's data. Therefore, the model can be thought of as representing the app's domain model, which usually includes a data model along with business and validation logic. So next, let's head to Visual Studio and let's take a look at our code or the project. So first is to update the model. In the first part of this tutorial, we will implement the MVVM pattern. And to start, open the node solution which we created in our previous video. If you have followed along my previous videos, you must be having this node solution and you need to open that in Visual Studio. Let's first start by cleaning up the model. In the previous tutorial, the model types were acting both as model and as a view model. Model as in the data and view model as in data preparations, which was mapped directly to the view. And here are the following models. The first model was the about.cs model. The about.cs model contained read-only fields. Let me open that. So this contains the read-only fields that describe the app itself, such as app title, version, and so on. Next was the node.cs model. This model represents the node itself, and the all nodes model loads all the nodes on the device into a collection. So this was or all the models that we used. Thinking about the app itself, there is only one piece of data that is used by the app, and that is the node. Nodes are loaded from the device, saved to the device, and edited through the app UI. There really isn't a need for the about or the all nodes models. So let's remove these models from our project. So let's go to Solution Explorer and right click on the about model and click on delete. Let's do the same for all nodes model. So now that we are done, we are only left with one model, that is the nodes model. Now next, let's update this node model. The node model contains a unique identifier, which is the file name of the node as stored on the device, and the text of the node, and the date to indicate when the node was created or last updated. Currently, loading and saving the model was done through the views, and in some cases by the other model types that we just removed. So the code you have for the nodes type should be the following. The node model is going to be expanded to handle loading, saving, and deleting of the nodes. So let's go to Solution Explorer pane and double click on this nodes if it is not open for you. And in the code editor, let's add the two methods to the node classes. These two methods are instance based and handle saving or deleting the current node to and from the device respectively. So let's add these two methods. I have the code available, so I won't be typing all of this, but I will surely explain what I have done. So these are the two methods that we will be having. One is the save and the other one is the delete. Next, the app needs to load nodes in two ways: loading an individual node from a file and loading all nodes on the device. The code to handle loading can be static members, not requiring a class instance to run. So let's add another piece of code to this file. So we have now the save method, then we have the delete method to delete the node, then we have the load method to load the node. So we have all the three methods for saving, deleting, and loading nodes. Next, this code, if you see the load method, takes the file name as a parameter, builds the path to where the nodes are stored on the device, and attempts to load the file if it exists. And the second way to load nodes is to enumerate all nodes on the device and load them into a collection. And to do that, let's add another piece of code to load all the nodes that are present in our drive. So this code returns an enumerable collection of node model types by retrieving the files on the device that match the node file pattern. And each file name is passed to the load method, loading an individual file node. Finally, the collection of the node is ordered by the date, and each of the node are returned to the caller. Lastly, let's add a constructor to this class which sets the default values for the properties, including a random file name. So here is our constructor that sets this default file name, the date, and the text. Next, now let's create the above view model. Before adding view models to this project, we need to reference to the MVVM community toolkit. This library is available on NuGet and provides types and systems that help implement the MVVM pattern. So in the solution explorer or on the tools here, we can go to NuGet package manager and manage NuGet package for our solution. Next, on the browse tab, let's search for community toolkit. And let's select the first one, community toolkit.mvvm, and select our project and install. It will install the latest stable version 8.4.0. It may be a different version for you, so make sure you select the latest version and apply the changes and accept. Once it is installed, you are ready to start updating the project by adding view models. So next, let's decouple with view models. The view to view model relationship relies heavily on the binding system provided by .NET multi-platform app UI called .NET MAUI. The app is already using binding in the views to display a list of nodes and to present the text and date of a single node. The app logic is currently provided by the view's code behind and is directly tied to the view. For example, when a user is editing a note and presses the save button, the clicked event of the button is raised. Then the code behind for the event handler saves the note text to a file and navigates to the previous screen. Having app logic in the code behind of a view can become an issue when the view changes. For example, if the button is replaced with a different input control or the name of the control is changed, event handlers might become invalid. Regardless of how the view is designed, the purpose of the view is to invoke some sort of app logic and to present information to the user. For this app, the save button is saving the note and then navigating back to the previous screen. The view model gives the app a specific place to put the app logic regardless of how the UI is designed or how the data is being loaded or saved. The view model is the glue that represents and interacts with the data model on behalf of the view. The view models are stored in a view models folder. So let's do that by going to Solution Explorer and right clicking on a project and adding a new folder and naming it as view models. Okay. Now let's right click on our view models folder and add a new class and name it about view model.cf. Let's repeat the step and create two more view models. One is the note view model and the other is notes view model. So let's repeat the process. Let's right click, add class note view model. Let me copy this, add, and let me create one more which is for the all nodes, and this one will be called notes view model. So if you look at your solution explorer under view models, you should have about view model, notes view model, and note view model. Next, let's talk about view model and about view. The about view displays some data on the screen and optionally navigates to a website with more information. Since this view doesn't have any data to change, like with a text entry control or selecting items from a list, it is a good candidate to demonstrate adding a view model. So for the about view model, there isn't a backing model. So let's create the about view model. So let's go to Solution Explorer on the view and double click on the view models about view model. If it is open, you can start working on this, and let's add a piece of code here. So within our class, let's paste this code. There are a few things missing. The first one is using the community toolkit dot mvvm dot input, and I think that should resolve all the errors. Let's save this. So the previous code snippet, which we deleted, the models, contained some properties that represented information about the app, such as the name, version, and so on. This snippet is exactly the same as the about model that we deleted earlier. However, the view model contains a new concept, the show more info command property, that we can see over here. Previously, we only had title, version, more info, URL, and the message. And now we have this additional property. And now in the next, this command, these commands are bindable actions that invoke code and are great place to put app logic. So in this example, the show more info command points to the show more info method, which opens the web browser to a specific page. You will learn more about the command system in the next section. So here, this command points to the show more info, which in turn launches this URL, which is present in the more info URL property. So next, let's head to the about view. The about view needs to be changed slightly to hook it up to the view model that we created here. So in the views, let's go to about page XAML file, and we'll apply the following changes to this code. First, let's update the XML namespace model to XML namespace view model. So here we have models, so let's change it to view model. And also change this to notes dot view models. Next, let's change the data type, or the change the content page dot binding context property to a new instance of the about view model. So let's go here, change this to view models dot about view models. And also let's change it over here. Let's copy this, paste it over here, and also change this to about view model. So now these changes are done. Let's remove the button clicked event handler and use the command property. So here we have the button clicked event handler. Let's remove this, and instead we will use the command property, and we will bind it to show more info command. And that's it. And notice that the button is using the command property. Many controls have a command property that is invoked when the user interacts with the control. When used with a button, the command is invoked when a user presses the button, similar to how a clicked event handler is invoking, except that you can bind commands to properties in the view model. In this view, when the user presses this button, the command is invoked. The command is bound to the show more info command property in the view model. And when the invoked command runs the code in the show more info method, which opens the web browser to a specific page. So here, this is pointing to the show more info command here, and this show more info command is pointing to the show more info method, and that launches this show more info URL property value. So next is cleaning up the about code behind. So the show more info button isn't using the event handler, so the learn more underscore click code should be removed from the views slash about page xaml.cs file. So let's delete that code, and the class should only contain the constructor. So now that we are not using that button clicked event, so let's go to this view and remove this learn underscore clicked method, now that we are using the command, and now only that is left is the constructor of the class. So next, we will focus on creating the note view model now that we are done with the about page view and view model. Goal of updating the note view is to move as much functionality as possible out of the XAML code behind and put it in the note view model. Based on what the note view requires, the note view model needs to provide the following items: the text of the note, the date and time the note was created or last updated, a command that saves the note, and a command that deletes the note. So let's create the note view model, which we already created in the previous steps. So let's open this note view model, and let's replace the code that I have here. This code is the blank note view model where you will add properties and commands to support the note view. Notice that the community toolkit.mvvm.component model namespace is being imported. This namespace provides the observable object used as the base class, and you will learn more about observable object in the next steps. The community.toolkit.mvvm.input namespace is also imported. This namespace provides more command types that invoke method asynchronously. The model.note model is being stored as a private field. The properties and methods of this class will use this field. So next, let's add some properties to this class. One would be the text property, the date property, and we'll also have an identifier of type string that will point to the note.file name. So let's add this code. So here I have added the text property, the date property, and the identifier. The date and the identifier properties are simple properties that just retrieve the corresponding values from the model. The text property first chooses if the value being set is different value. If the value is different, the value is passed on the model's property, and the on property changed method is called. The on property change method is provided by the observable object base class. This method uses the name of the calling method, calling code, in this case the property name of text, and raises the observable object.property change event. This event supplies the name of the property to any event subscriber. The binding system provided by .NET MAUI recognizes this event and updates any related bindings in the UI. For the note view model, when the text property changes, the event is raised, and any UI element that is bound to the text property is notified that the property has changed. So next, let's add some command properties to this class, which are the commands that can view, can bind to, and these will be the save command and the delete command. So let's add these also. So these two constructors are used to either create the view model with a backing model, which is an empty node, or to create a view model that uses the specified model instance. In this case, it's the nodes. And the constructor also set up the commands for the view model. So next, let's add the code for these commands and the save and delete methods. So here we have these relay commands which are missing as of now, but we need to add these to our code. So here I have the save and delete commands. So these methods are invoked by associated commands. They perform the related action on the model and make the app navigate to the previous page. A query string parameter is added to the navigation path, indicating which action was taken and the node's unique identifier. Next, let's add the apply query attributes method to this class, which satisfies the requirements of the iQueryable attribute interface over here. So it is missing and it says it is not being implemented. So let's add that. So as soon as I add this, you see this error has been removed. Finally, let's add the two helper methods to this class. One is the reload and the other is the refresh properties. So let's add these. The reload method is a helper method that refreshes the backing model object, reloading it from the device's storage. The refresh properties method is another helper method to ensure that any subscribers bound to this object are notified that the text and date properties have changed. Since the underlying model, the note field is changed when the note is loaded during navigation, the text and date properties aren't actually set to the new values. Since these properties aren't directly set, any bindings attached to these properties would be notified because on property changed isn't called for each property. So refresh properties ensures binding to the properties and refreshes it. So finally, the code should look something like this for you. So now that the view model has been created, let's update the note view. In the Solution Explorer under Views, you have the note page XAML. Let's open it and apply the following changes. So first, let's change the namespace here from models to view model, and change also this to nodes dot view models, Next, we will also change the binding context of this page. Let's change this to view models dot note note view model. Okay, there you go. And I think I need to next the next let's change this clicked event. So we do not need this clicked event now, and we will use the command property. So let's modify this, and let's say command to a binding, and let's say save command. Let's do the same for the delete button. Delete command. Also, let's set a content page binding context. So next to our, let's add a content page dot binding context, and within this let's add view models context, and it shouldn't be the about, but it should be the notes view model, not notes but note view model. So let's save this, and let me explain what are the changes that we did. So previously this view didn't declare a binding context, which we added now. And as it was supplied by the code behind of the page itself, setting the binding context directly in the XML provides two things. At runtime, when the page is navigated to, it displays a blank note. This is because the parameterless constructor for the binding context, the view model, is invoked. If you remember correctly, the parameterless constructor for the note view model creates a blank note. The IntelliSense in the XAML editor shows the available properties as soon as you start typing binding syntax that we saw just now for the save command and the delete command. The syntax is also validated and alerts you of invalid values. So let's try changing the binding syntax for the save command to save 123 command and see if we get any IntelliSense here. So if you hover the mouse cursor on the text, you will notice that the save 123 command in the data context note view model over here is not found. This notification isn't considered as error because bindings are dynamic. It's really a small warning that might help you notice when you type the wrong property. So in this way, you can ensure that you are writing the right names or property names using this binding context. So let me change it back to save command and save this. So next, let's clean up the code behind. To do that, let's go to Solution Explorer and open the node page xaml.cs, and let's remove all the code and just keep the constructor. So we have the load nodes. Let's remove this. We have the save button clicked and delete button clicked, which was directly written in the code behind. So let's remove this, and let's also remove these properties and load node call that we made, and let's just keep only the constructor, and also remove this item that we had, and also remove this query property on the top. So after we delete everything, this is how your code should look like for the nodes view code behind. Creating the nodes view model. The final view model view pair is the nodes view model and the all nodes view. Currently, though, the view is bind directly to the model, which was deleted at the start of this tutorial. The goal is updating the all nodes view is to move as much functionality as possible out of the XAML code behind and put it in the view model. Again, the benefit being that the view can change its design with the little effect to your code. So based on the what all nodes view is going to display and what interactions the user will do, the nodes view model must provide the following items. One is a collection of nodes. Second is a command to handle navigating to node, a command to create a new node, updating the list of nodes when the one is created, deleted, or changed. So let's create the or update the nodes view model. So here we have our nodes view model. So let's add a few changes to this. So first is to add the namespace, the I queryable attribute, uh, or inherit this, and then we will also add a few name classes using namespaces system dot collection dot object model, and the other one is the NuGet package that we added called community toolkit dot mvvm dot input. So after we add these, let's add in this class, let's add three properties. One is the observable collection of type view models dot node view model called all nodes, and two commands. So let's add them. So here we have an observable collection. The all nodes property is an observable collection that stores all the nodes loaded from the device. The two commands will be used by the view to trigger the actions of creating a node or selecting an existing node. Now let's add a parameterless constructor to the class which initializes the commands and loads the nodes from the model. So notice that the all nodes uses the model.nodes.load all method to fill this observable collection with nodes. The load all method returns the nodes as a model.nodes type, but the observable collection is of viewModels.nodeViewModel type. So let's create two methods that are targeted by these commands. One is the new node async and the select node async. So let's add these code. And as soon as I add, these errors are gone. And you notice that the new node async method doesn't take any parameter, while the select node async takes a parameter. Commands can optionally have a single parameter that is provided when the command is invoked. For the select node async method, the parameter represents the node that is being selected. Finally, let's implement the iQueryable attribute dot apply query attribute method. And the node view model created in the previous tutorial steps used navigation when the node was saved or deleted. The view model navigated back to the all nodes view which the view model is associated with. This code detects if the query string contains either deleted or saved key. The value of the key is a unique identifier of the node. If the node was deleted, that node is matched in the all nodes collection by the provided identifier and removed. There are two possible reasons a node is saved. The node was either just created or an existing was changed. If the node is already in the nodes collection, it's a node that was updated. In this case, the node instance is a collection, just needs to be refreshed. If the node is missing from the collection, it's a new node and must be added to the collection. So finally, your code should look something like this. Here I will make a small change here and add the reference models dot nodes, and this should take care of the error. So next we will make changes to the all nodes view. So let's go to Solution Explorer and open the all nodes view page.xaml and make some changes. So first we will need to add the XAML namespace view models over here. And before this was pointing to models, and this was pointing to also to the model. So now I have modified it to be view models, and also I have modified the data type to view models dot nodes view model. Also I have added a content page of binding context to view models dot nodes view model. We also understood in the previous section where how what is the use of this, which provides these intelligence and also warns you if you have sets a wrong binding or a wrong name for the binding. So next there are a few changes to the bindings as well. Here previously it was bound to nodes, and now we have bound it to our all nodes property, and in the nodes view model over here. And the next change that we did is the selection changed command, and we are binding it to the select node command that we created here at the back. Then we have the selection change command parameter that is of type collection view, and the source is set to relative source of self, and the path is a selected item. Then there are a few more changes that we did. The bindings for the labels, the text and date will remain as is. So the toolbar here no longer uses the clicked event handler. Instead, I have changed this to a command, and the binding is set to a new command, which invokes this new command from the um, and it relays it to this new node async, and this new node async goes to the views.node page. So these are all the changes that we did to our page. Now for the binding expression defined in the selection change command parameter property to compile, it's necessary to instruct the project to enable compiled bindings in expressions. That specifies the source property. To do this, edit the project file of your solution and add a few changes. So let's go to our solution and go to our project properties. And here let's add a property called, so I am setting this property called MAUI enabled XAML C bindings with source compilation to true. And once we do this, the binding expression defined in our selection change command parameter will not throw any compiled bindings error. So next, let's clean up the all nodes code behind. So let's go to this all nodes code behind and remove all of this that was previously directly written in the code behind. So let me remove all these event handlers and selection node selection changed events, and just leave the constructor, and that's it. So now let's run this app and see if there are any errors. So here we have our notes app loaded, and it has loaded one of the old notes that I had saved. However, there are two problems with how the app behaves. If you select a note which opens the editor, press save and try to reselect the same note, it doesn't work. Whenever a note is changed or added, the list of notes isn't reordered to show the latest notes at the top. So let me add a new note and let's save it, and you will see that it is not reordered and added to the top. So these are two errors that we need to fix. So let's fix the app behaviors. So now that we are able to compile and run, we have likely noticed that there are some flaws that we just discussed. So let's fix them and reorder these nodes, and also uh, be able to select the node that we just edited. So let's first fix the reordering problem with the nodes list. In the view models, let's stop this application, and in the view models, node view model CS. So let me go to the solution explorer and view model nodes view model. Let's open this file, and the all nodes collection contains all of the nodes to be presented to the user. Unfortunately, the downside to using an observable collection is that it must be manually sorted. To get the new or updated item to the top of the list, let's perform a few changes. So let me paste in the code, and I will explain what changes we have made. So when the node match node isn't null, the node is being updated. We will use this all nodes.move, which I've just added method to move the match node to the index 0, which is at the top of the list. The all nodes.move method takes two parameters to move an object position in the collection. The first parameter is the index of the object that to be moved, and the second parameter is the index of where to move the object. The all nodes.index of method retrieves the index of the node. When the match node is null, the node is a new node and is being added to the list. Instead of adding it, which appends the node to the end of the list, we will insert the node at the index 0, which is the top of the list, and changes to the all nodes.add method to the all nodes.insert method. So we have done these changes, and let's make this small minor change over here. And finally, your apply query attribute method should look something like this. So let me save this, and now let's run this application. So now that our project is loaded, and here you can see our application, the old nodes are automatically sorted where the latest node is sorted to 0 index. And also, if I go ahead and add a new node and save, you will see that it has been added to the top of the list. But still there is an error that we haven't solved, is clicking a node, saving it, and when I click it again, it is not being selected or opened. So that to fix that, there is a small change that we need to do, and we will look at it soon. So finally, let's fix the solution or the problem where we cannot select the node twice. And to do that, we just use the navigated to event to clear the selected item from the collection view. So let's go to Solution Explorer and open the all nodes page.view.xaml. And in the XAML of the content page, let's add the navigated to event. So here under our title, let's say navigated to, and let's add a new event handler which is called content page underscore navigated to. And let's go to our code behind, which is the all nodes page.xaml.cs, where the code event and handler is created. And let's change this to nodes um, collection dot selected item is equal to null. Doing this will fix the problem of selecting a node twice. So let me run this application. So here is a node. Let me select this, make some changes. Let's save this and let me click on this, and you can see we are now able to fix the problem of selecting a node twice. Hope you all liked watching this video. If you do, please give this video a thumbs up, like, share, and do subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye.